On this episode of The Twisted Realm, nestled in the heart of the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Twisted Crew travels to Bedford, Virginia, a small town with a big historic past. With history ranging from Civil War to World War II, sits our location of interest for this week's episode. Will the residents from this location's historic past welcome us? This is Avenel Plantation. In this world of the unknown, is there a realm between life and death? Join us as we travel up and down the East Coast, researching and investigating many locations with claims of paranormal activity. Gotta get closer than that. Oh my Lord.
Oh. What the?
We are believers. Glad to see you.
Good job.
Yay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Hey, Lyle.
Come back down and look at that stuff on the bench there. If you actually touch them, they'll light up for us. We are seekers of the truth.
Hey,
Whoa.
REM pod.
Let me get that thing going.
Look at that thing.
We are the Twisted Paranormal Society. And this is The Twisted Realm. Today, we are taking you to the streets of Bedford, Virginia, to investigate one of its historic but haunted locations, Avenel Plantation. For more on the historical claims and paranormal activity that takes place within the plantation house itself, we're going to meet up with Taffany May, who is one of the caretakers of the property.
The house was built in 1836. It began in 1836. Then they finished it, moved in 1838. It was a huge plantation, took in about 200 acres, and they had multiple slaves. They had 80 total, but not all lived here. Most of them did, but some lived on some other property that they owned. So there were slave quarters and lots of families here, not just the Burrell family. Robert E. Lee, they were into politics and everything, so Robert E. Lee was a big part of their life. He would come here and visit multiple times, and his wife stayed here about a month one time to get a respite from all that was going on. It was a place where political people came, regular people came, and they were great to take care of the soldiers when they would come in. On the train, they would go down and get them and bring groups up to eat and to clean up and rest, and would send food down to the train for the others. And so they were just a very involved family, right, politically and socially in the neighborhood, in this whole community at the time, which was Liberty.
So after the Burrell family, who then took over the property?
Okay. In 1905, when Letitia, which was the oldest daughter of the Burrell family, she lived here her whole life. She never married, and died in 1905. And then in 1906 is when the property was actually sold and divided. The Ballard family then bought this property. And at the time the house was built, it had two small little porticos, small porches. And then when the Ballards bought it, they put this big wraparound porch on at that time. And they lived here. The Ballard family held on to this property all the way to 1985.
Okay.
When the last Ballard member left, which is Peggy Ballard, Maupin.
Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of when the society came in. When did the society come in?
In 1985. They purchased it from Peggy Maupin herself. And that's when the restoration and all began then.
Okay. Because in 85, did it kind of look run down? And
Terribly.
Because I remembered seeing a couple pictures of before and after the society actually came in and took over.
The porch was rotting, literally rotting. The house, the walls were all cracked. The plaster work in the ceilings were cracked. Every step, I've been here 13 years as the facility director, and in 13 years, outside, inside, it's just amazing what has been accomplished in that amount of time.
So can you fill me in a little bit on this possible lady in white that's seen around the property?
Well, that's been the overwhelming story, was the lady in white, the Lady of Avenel, the White Lady of Avenel. And through the years, there have been different claims people have made where they have seen her. There was a picture taken years ago by a local gentleman, that appeared to show a lady in a gown on the corner of the porch.
Okay.
And through the years, there's been different claims of seeing her, walking through the yard. And again, nobody knows exactly who this is. We all tend to feel that it may be Mrs. Burrell or Letitia, one of the oldest daughter.
Why do you feel that Avenel has activity or is called haunted?
Well, when I first moved here in the 70s, before the house was they had started to be fixed up, one of the first things that I was told as a new Bedford resident was that place is haunted, and it looked haunted at the time. It had grown over and dark and creepy. But then all these years later, I interviewed for this job, like I said, 13 years ago. It didn't look creepy anymore. But anyway, I started working here, and I did not have an opinion one way or the other about paranormal. I didn't even think about that.
Right.
But my first experience began to change my mind. And when I was here, a few months after starting the job, I was working in my office upstairs on a beautiful September day, clear, no storms or anything, and I was typing away, and boom, this really loud boom sound. I could even feel the vibrations, and I thought that something in the room next to me had crashed over. So I got up and looked, and there was nothing out of place. And I looked out the windows, I looked there, and I knew it came from within the house. There was no doubt, but I couldn't figure out where.
Well, I can say from what you just described from our first experience here back in January of 2012, and we've let you hear this, that we actually captured that sound. And to us, it sounded like it was a gentleman, and you hear the word ready, almost like it's a firing squad type sound, like it's a gunshot or a musket shot or something that happens. So, yeah, I'm glad that we actually caught that. I know we shared that with you, and you've kind of confirmed that that's kind of the same sound almost that you've heard
Absolutely.
through the house. But
yeah, the first time, you guys were the first ones to ever record the voice that came with that sound.
Right.
All the groups only had received the boom sound, but never a voice that went with it. And when you came with that, then that made it make sense.
Right. Yeah, it did.
So now I know what it is.
It has to be one of probably, I think over the years, it's probably one of the best EVPs that I think we've ever captured. And I'm glad it was right here. I know over the years you've changed the names of rooms, right? I know the one upstairs that really stood out to us as well was the pink room. When we first came back here in 2012, there were claims of little girls in that room, activity. I know that in 2012, the second great piece that we captured was actually that little girl peeking around in a mirror by the door. And that was another great catch for us.
Absolutely.
And it kind of confirmed that there is a little girl, in my opinion, that there's a little girl that hangs around there. So what are future plans for Avenel?
Originally, they had talked about restoring the old kitchen. Or now that it's fallen down, we would re-erect it to look just like it did in the past on the outside. But then on the inside, for it to be a big room, a big ballroom, conference center, that is something we really would love to see happen.
That'd be beautiful.
Because not only would it be, bring it back historically.